Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, we are not really doing anything new, but we are going to be using this really cool Pippity Pop 18-ounce tumbler from the Steel Magnolia. It does have two tapered ends because it's shaped like a soda can. So we are just going to apply our vinyl to this and do a double waterfall glitter to hide those curves. I just did my rough measurements as I normally do. I held up this vinyl to the can and just marked it right where it would start to curve over the edges. Sliced a nice clean line through my vinyl, and then I'm going to double check to make sure that it is lined up perfectly. Cut a little bit of that backing off to expose the stickiness of the vinyl, maybe about 1/4 of an inch. And then we're going to place it back onto the tumbler and line it up prior to pushing that little exposed stickiness down. Once we have it exactly where we want, we're going to push that little exposed sticky down and then work our way around the tumbler, pressing the vinyl down as the backing is being removed. You don't have to use the squeegee tool, but I use it since I have one on hand. It really does help eliminate getting any bubbles that can sneak in under your vinyl as you're pressing it down. I'll link that for you down in the description. They're really cheap on Amazon if you want to grab yourself some. So I'm going to cut off a little bit of this excess vinyl, and since this is removable vinyl, I'm just going to place it right next to that seam instead of having to use some tape, and then I'm going to take my blade and cut straight down where I just placed that vinyl. This will help me line up my seam, get a straight line, and then I'm going to remove that little tiny piece underneath. I did forget to mention, but most of you probably already know, this vinyl is from Gracefully Created. It was part of one of my Brittany bundles, and it is now available individually on the gracefullycreatedccd.com website. Now, to cover the stainless ends up, I'm going to be using some of this Flipn Awesome CRYSTALAC paints. Now, just straight out of the box, first impression with these, I really like the fact that they are double sealed. You do have to cut the tip of it off for the paint to come out, and it's also sealed underneath the cap, so there's no chance of it leaking on the way to you in the mail. I just mixed these two colors together, which was Peaches and Cream and Coral Crush, to get more of that peachy color that is on the tumbler. I didn't quite get it this time, but that's okay because I am going to do 2 coats. We're going to cover these with glitter, so I just want that stainless to have the same tint as a color that we have in our vinyl. So I'm not being very particular on how it is painted because, again, we are going to be covering this with glitter. Once I had that first coat on, I did dry it with a low setting on my heat gun, and then I went back in with my second coat. The second time I went in, I did go heavier on that Coral Crush, which got it a little bit closer to the peaches that I have on the tumbler. And honestly, I really wish I would have went with the mint color that is in the background. After I put my glitter on, I was like, why would you do that, Brittany? I asked myself that way too many times, but it still worked and it still looked good in the end, but the mint green definitely would have camouflaged the ends a whole lot better than putting orange on there, since the mint green was the main color. Once that paint has dried, we're going to go in with 1 milliliter of Speedy Petey DIY's Fast Set Epoxy. This dries incredibly fast. It will be ready for me to put my first epoxy coat on in about an hour to 2 hours. I just want it dry enough to where the glitter is going to stick to the tumbler and not move around. Epoxy method is my favorite way to apply glitter to my tumblers or my glitter projects. So it's really awesome that this does dry so quickly because it's actually faster than even using a glue. As the glues, you do have to allow them to dry between 2 and 4 hours, and Mod Podge, we're not even going to talk about that because it takes 10 years to dry. I'm just kidding, it doesn't take 10 years, but it does take a very long time, and I refuse to use it on a lot of my projects just for that reason. So the glitter we are using is Chanel from PDB Creative Studio, and as you can see, it is absolutely gorgeous. It was the most perfect gold color to match the peaches and the retro vibe of this tumbler. Has the multicolor pieces in there as well, so that when we add on our vinyl, we can put some holographic on there and it is just going to come together perfectly. I wanted to add some glitter to this tumbler, but I did not want to cover up much of the vinyl, so I went heavy around the top and the bottom rims, and then I held my tumbler at a sharp angle and sprinkled the glitter on the top and the bottom rims. That allows it to flow down onto the tumbler like a waterfall and just sort of ombres that into the vinyl. Now, since this mix does have quite a bit of chunky pieces in it, I did not use my shaker lid. If you are not really familiar with doing ombres or the waterfall glitter, then I will suggest using your shaker and then going really slow with it. That way you have more control of where your glitter is going to go, and you can take your time until you really get used to it. I tapped down all of those chunky bits and then allowed this to dry. I applied 2 coats of epoxy, and as you can see, it is sanded, and cut my decal out in the meantime. I found this decal on Etsy and I cut it to 4 inches wide, and then I did a 0.045 offset for the holographic vinyl that you see we are layering it onto. If you did not see our last tutorial, which was the Taste Like Freedom coffee mug, I did show all of the beautiful holographic vinyls that come in the TeckWrapcraft pack, and this is just one of those vinyls. It had a vintage pink tint to it, so I went with that to go with the whole retro theme of the cup. The vinyl that I used to print out the decal is Buttercraft printable vinyl. It is super thin and it really feeds through your printer really well, and it cuts really well with your Cricut machine. I did make a huge mistake and not seal this. Normally my tumblers are glossy and unsanded when I apply my printable vinyl decals, but in this case it wasn't, and I actually should have sealed it prior to adding it to my tumbler. So since it is matte and it's a paper-like surface, it does have pores, or it is porous, so your epoxy will seep down into your decal, in return causing some micro bubbles. And I apologize for the lighting in this clip. I completely forgot to turn on the overhead light and was just using my ring light, so it wasn't the brightest in there when I was applying the epoxy to the tumbler, which was part of the culprit in why I did not see all of those little tiny micro bubbles popping up on top of my vinyl. So make sure you seal all of your printable vinyl, y'all. But here is the final result in much better lighting. I love these Pippity Pop cans. They are 18 ounce and they are perfect for adults or kids. I know that they do fit down in my daughter's car seat cup holder, and as a mom, that's a huge deal for me because it eliminates random cups rolling around in the back of my car. And mommy, I've dropped my cup 1,000 times while we're going down the road. Moms, you know exactly what I am talking about. Don't forget that all of the products I used will be listed down in the description below, as well as some coupon codes for you. That is all for today. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.